For months, I begged my wife for closeness. Each night became a quiet echo of everything we'd lost. The gap between us wasn't just in the bed anymore. It had spread deeper, into something unseen, choking everything we used to be. I once believed marriages fade slowly, like a candle burning down to its wick. But ours, it felt like someone blew it out in one sharp breath. Her name was Claire. We'd been married 8 years, together for 10. In the beginning, she was warm, teasing, alive. I can still hear her laugh while we cooked dinner, how she'd steal bites before the food was ready. But over the last year, that woman dissolved into a stranger. She stopped hugging me when I got home, barely glancing up from her phone. I tried to mend it the only way I knew, carefully, quietly, afraid to push her away. I asked if something was wrong, if I'd done something. She'd shrug, say, "I'm just tired," or, "You're imagining it." So, I waited. I told myself it was a phase. But it wasn't. The nights stretched into months of rejection. Every time I reached for her, she turned away. Every kiss was met with a sigh or an excuse. Eventually, I stopped sharing a bed with her. Not out of anger, but because the silence hurt less than the rejection. There's a certain heartbreak in lying next to the person you love and feeling invisible. One night, after another wordless dinner, I asked if she was still attracted to me. She sighed, irritated. "You always make everything about sex," she said. "It's not about sex, Claire," I whispered, keeping my voice steady. "It's about connection. You're not here anymore." She rolled her eyes. "Not everything has to be about you, Daniel." That was the moment I knew something had broken for good. After that, I stopped asking, stopped waiting, stopped looking for her in the empty spaces between our words. I started coming home later, sitting in my truck just to avoid the silence that waited inside. Eventually, I stopped trying altogether. When she asked what was wrong, I gave her the same cold answer she'd used for months. Nothing. The irony wasn't lost on me. Weeks later, I noticed her phone had a new password. She'd always been private, but this was different. Late at night, she'd be texting, her face lit by the glow of the screen, a faint smile curving her lips, a smile I hadn't seen in months. I wanted to believe it meant nothing, but my gut told me otherwise. I didn't confront her. Not yet. I just watched. That weekend, she said she was going out with friends from work. Normally, I'd ask the usual questions, who, when, where, but that night I didn't. I simply said, "Have fun." She looked startled, maybe even uneasy. "You're not mad?" she asked. "No," I said evenly. "You deserve a night out." That evening, I stayed home, ordered takeout, watched a movie alone. For the first time in months, I didn't watch the clock. I didn't picture where she was. I just sat there, realizing I'd finally stopped fighting for something that was already gone. She came home after midnight, the faint scent of someone else's perfume clinging to her. She avoided my eyes, mumbled something about traffic, and disappeared into the bedroom. I didn't follow. I just stared down the empty hall, feeling a strange mix of grief and peace. Because deep down I knew, the part of me that had begged for her love had finally died. And in its place, something colder, quieter, and unshakably strong had taken root. The next morning, I woke before her. Sunlight filtered through the blinds, painting her face in soft gold. She looked serene, the kind of calm that once comforted me, but now only reminded me how far she'd drifted. I got up, brewed coffee, and sat in silence, staring at the life that no longer felt like mine. When she finally came downstairs, she smiled faintly. "Morning," she said, as if nothing had changed. I nodded. She scrolled through her phone, asked, "You working late again tonight?" "Yeah," I said. "Probably." It was a lie. I wasn't working late. I just couldn't bear to be home. The house had become a museum, everything perfectly in place, untouched, lifeless. Every photo on the wall looked like proof of a love that had already died. That evening, instead of driving to the office, I went to the beach. I sat there for hours, listening to the waves crash and fade, trying to remember the last time I felt like myself. Somewhere along the line, I had stopped being Daniel, the husband, and turned into Daniel, the man begging for crumbs of affection. The next few weeks passed in quiet resignation. Claire went out more often, dressed differently, laughed louder when she thought I wasn't listening. I stopped asking questions. Funny thing is, once you stop fighting for someone's attention, the truth becomes painfully clear. Then one night, I came home to find her waiting at the table, face unreadable. "We need to talk," she said. 4 words, an unofficial death sentence for any marriage. I sat across from her, calm. "Go ahead," she sighed, eyes flicking everywhere but mine. I don't think this is working anymore. I need space." I nodded slowly. "Space," I repeated. "You mean you want to separate?" She hesitated, biting her lip. "I think it's for the best. We've both changed." I paused, then asked, "Is there someone else?" Her eyes flashed with offense. "Why would you even say that?" I gave a faint smile. "Because I've seen it. The way you've been, happier, lighter, just not with me." She said nothing. The same silence that had filled our house for months answered in her place. I stood, walked to the counter, and picked up my mug. "You know," I said quietly, "for months I begged you to talk to me, to touch me, to just see me again. You refused. And now that I've stopped asking, you suddenly want space. I guess we finally understand each other." I left before she could speak. Over the next few days, I started gathering my things, not out of anger but clarity. I found a small apartment across town. She didn't protest. Maybe she was relieved. The night before I moved, she came into the living room while I was packing. "So that's it?" she asked. "You're just walking away?" I looked at her, steady. "Claire, I spent months trying to keep us together. You're the one who walked away, you just did it slower." She didn't reply. Tears filled her eyes, but I didn't reach for her. I'd spent too long chasing someone who didn't want to be caught. The next morning, I left my key on the counter, took one last look at the house, and walked out. The air outside felt lighter, freer. I didn't feel triumphant, just at peace. In the weeks that followed, she texted occasionally. Small things. "Hope you're okay," or "I saw your brother today." I replied politely at first, then not at all. There's nothing to say when a bridge has already turned to ash. Months later, a friend mentioned she was seeing someone new. I wasn't surprised. What had surprised me was how little it hurt. The man who once begged for her love no longer existed. One evening, I sat on my balcony, watching the sunset spill gold across the horizon. I thought about everything, the pleading, the rejection, the silence, and realized something simple but profound. Love can't survive without respect, and respect dies without effort. She had withheld intimacy, not just of the body, but of the heart. And when I finally stopped asking, I didn't lose her. I found myself. That's the quiet truth about walking away. Sometimes it's not the end of love. It's the beginning of dignity.